Hi, this is Ian Braid from Sport with another in the series of podcast conversations with Manx athletes who have very kindly given up their time to come on and talk about their journeys so far and their for the future. And I'm delighted to have a conversation with Robyn, who I know has got a lot to share that will be of great value. So, good morning, Robyn. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell me where from the island you are and what you do, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, hi. I'm Robyn. I'm from Crosby in the Isle of Man. I'm currently studying at Lancaster University, and I am a swimmer turned weightlifter.
Right. That opens a rich seam of questions, so we'll get into it. The so swimming obviously was your first sport. What was it like doing sport on the Isle of Man when you were a kid in school, and how did you get into swimming?
I always did swimming lessons because we live on an island. My parents think it's important to know how to swim in case you fall off the edge or fall off the boat. So I've done swimming lessons since I was about 2 years old at Peel, and I actually didn't enjoy them so much. I used to pretend to have headaches all the time, and my grandparents used to let me skip them. My mum used to go mad because she pays for these lessons that I was skiving. But eventually, I started to really enjoy it as I got older. Once you can do lengths instead of widths, I began to really enjoy it. And once I'd finished all 10 stages, I joined Peel Swimming Club as it kind of began right at the beginning, and I was a part of that all the way up until this year. So I've been competitively swimming since around 2013.
Okay. And did you do other sports, or was it swimming, swimming, swimming?
When I was younger, I was a part of Max Harris Athletics Club very briefly. I enjoyed running, jumping. I was quite good at it. I did all the sports at school. In high school, I was and did netball, hockey, rounders, cross country. I was part of every team you could imagine. I enjoy all of them, but
Okay.
swimming is the one that really took over.
Okay. And what were the strokes that you were good at?
I'm a butterfly swimmer pretty much exclusively. I enjoyed backstroke and I can do front crawl above average, but by the time I retired, my butterfly was actually catching my freestyle, so I didn't do that so much either. I cannot do breaststroke, never have been able to do breaststroke. One of my feet actually comes out of the water when I kick. So I am a breaststroke refuser and will not do it in training or any other time, no matter what. But other than that, I would try all the other three strokes.
Do you hold any Manx records?
No, I hold uni records, but
No, we'll come to the uni, right?
the
I'm just
um the
the on the Sport Aid Athlete Advisory Board. We have Charlotte Atkinson,
yeah, she was a
right?
butterfly swimmer.
and 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 is also the owner of about a million records, isn't she? I think.
Yes, she was one of my absolute idols growing up. I remember at one of the galas when I was little, not even the gala actually, it was just training. She was put on my relay team at the end of the session, and I absolutely couldn't believe that I was in the same lane as Charlotte Atkinson. And then after that, there was someone called Liv Marshall who did butterfly alongside me, and she was insane as well. Her butterfly was so fast. So I don't hold any records, but I absolutely idolize everyone who does.
Yeah, but there is something about I mean that's something that being from the island lets you have, isn't it? That there's somebody that you idolize, and on a Saturday morning you could be cycling with them, or on a Friday night you could be in the same lane as, and that.
Yeah, it's a completely unique experience. Like Joel, one of who is the
Yeah,
best
no, I know Joel. We've
swimmer
had.
we've yeah, he's crazy. So he's actually one of my bosses at work, you know. He's just such a normal casual person that I'll interact with on a daily basis when I'm at home, but in the pool I've watched him on the TV at Commonwealth Games. It's crazy.
Yeah, that adds something to me to explain why. sport and Manx athletes excel, don't you think? That intimacy?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the coaching levels are able to be so much more detailed, because if you say went on a Monday or Wednesday morning, the sessions start 5:30, they're never going to be super busy. But our head coach Lee would always be there, and you would get almost one-on-one coaching because there was enough for only one person per lane or a couple. And being able to get picked apart like that and really focused on makes you feel seen as an athlete. And I think that's almost more important than the actual technical terms they're picking you up on, because you feel like somebody believes in you, and that really pushes me to want to do well.
Yeah, yeah, that's really strong. I dispute picked apart with you, but have your stroke technique dissected perhaps,
Yeah.
but I get it. So how did that how did your swimming career migrate into you, representing the Island Man Swim Club, whatever?
um it it started well. Once I got the competitive bug, I never stopped. I loved it from the second I started. It was quite hard, I remember, to get me to compete in the first place, especially to compete butterfly. I used to completely refuse. But once I started,
Why did you refuse?
it's hard. When
Well, yeah, I get that, right? But
I was just swimming butterfly when I was little, it was scary. I didn't want to do it. So I would go and do the kind of basic swims. I remember my first gala, I dived in, sunk to the bottom, and pushed off the floor. Instant disqualification if you're not aware of the kind of swimming rules. But I was just so excited to be there that I completely forgot how to do everything. But I think it does help that growing up, we did a lot of whole team galas across in the UK. They don't do it as often anymore, but they used to organize so many coaches, and parents would take a massive group of 20, 30 swimmers to go and compete in, say, 50-meter pools that we don't have on the island, or just bigger competitions where you can race against other people, because being the best in the Isle of Man does not mean that you are the best in the UK. And it was really important to put that into perspective at a young age, I think.
yeah.
So we also used to do training camps. I remember going to Forteventura, I think in 2017. And just that kind of team building and exposure to other athletes was really helpful in making the sport exciting.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I think that perspective of you know the whatever there is 80,000 people on the island, right? They that's about the size of Doncaster.
Yeah.
So that perspective of you are good, but here you are in the scheme of things. I think I that But that didn't put you off anyway. That's my point, right?
No, it always drove me. And I went to Island Games 2 years ago. It was shit. I was supposed to go this year, but unfortunately it clashed with graduation and everything. But that experience of Island Games was genuinely the greatest part of my entire sporting career so far. The
Because
the team atmosphere, and I actually think standing on poolside and cheering your teammates on may have been actually better than competing, because we had people like Joel going up on the blocks, and you'd really see how each individual athlete gets into that mindset of racing. So Joel would literally be eyeing down the people he was about to race. He would be pointing from his eyes to their eyes and be like, you should be scared of racing me. And then the entire team, all four of them, would go and absolutely smash it in these relays. And it was just so exciting to see everyone do well after you've all worked so hard for such a
yeah,
long time.
yeah,
And our coaches were so proud. Lee, our head coach, he would be crying during our national anthem whilst people were getting medals. And you all got kitted out in the same uniform. So every single athlete, no matter what sport, was all dressed the same. And we could do an opening and closing ceremony. You felt really special. And it was such a nice experience.
mm, yeah. So, talk to me about you were going through school, and obviously you've got to pursue your education. You wanted to go to university. What were the what were the selection criteria you had in your mind about these are the places I want to consider going to, and why did you end up in Lancaster?
Well, actually, my selection process wasn't as detailed as it probably should have been. Because of COVID, a lot of our uni trips were actually cancelled, so I didn't get to see any of the universities I was applying for before I decided on one. I knew I wanted to do marketing with psychology, and actually only two universities at the time offered that, and that was Lancaster or Edinburgh. And Edinburgh do their they release if you've gotten in or not a lot later than all of the other universities because it's a very prestigious uni. And in the end, I'd gotten into my other four, and that one I withdrew my application from because I didn't want to wait to select Lancaster. And one of the main things that actually made me choose it wasn't the sport or the degree, it was how close it was to home and how accessible going to see my family would be, and being able to jump on the boat. It's 20 minutes away from here, or a flight from Manchester is only an hour away, and just being able to get home if I needed to, or if I ever felt homesick or if anything happened, was really quite comforting to me when I was moving away.
Right. And so you mentioned you wanted to do marketing and psychology. The and what about running the sport along that? What were the important ingredients of what a university had to offer for you as a swimmer? What was it that Lancaster had, for example?
So at the time I researched their swimming, they had a coach from Preston, and they were advertising all of their successes at Bucks and Roses and BUSL, which is a smaller league swimming competition into unis. They did a really good job of pushing how good they are as a uni at the sport that I really value, which was swimming. And in terms of the degree, I knew I wanted to spend a lot of time training. So I wanted actually quite a lot of contact hours for my degree. So a lot of lectures and not so much independent study, because I know from years and years of school that I do everything last minute and I'm not good at revising. I am doing better this year at revising. This is the first time ever that I've done revision in advance, but because it worked so well for me, I've never needed to change my last minuteness. I don't do a lot of independent work, so being able to go to all of these lectures really helped me make time for my sport, because I could learn on the go, and then once I go home I could shut my laptop and go to the gym or go to the pool and not need to worry about it until my next lecture or seminar, which I thought, for how my brain works, was really beneficial.
Right. Okay. So how did you prepare for your transition to university, and how different was it once you got onto the mainland?
I didn't enjoy sixth form so much as the rest of my school time. So I actually took a year out before I came to university, and I worked at my local swimming pool as a lifeguard and swimming teacher for a full year, which really helped with my social skills. It upped my confidence. It made me really good under pressure and in kind of conflict situations. And it also gave me some leadership experience and some money to take with me, which is always nice. And I really felt once it was time to come to university that I was completely ready for a new chapter of my life. I'd done school, I'd done a bit of working, and now I was genuinely just really excited to start something new. So I remember my parents dropped me off, and my mum was crying, and they went and did a shop for me. Once they left, I was actually just settled in straight away, trying to meet my flatmates, and I didn't really look back after that. I didn't get too homesick or anything, so I was just really fortunate that the way I'd set everything up really made me ready for the next chapter of my life.
Okay, well done. And what was the swim club society like, and how did you get yourself involved in that?
I went to the first social to get to know everyone, and it was we had to dress up as all the freshers were angels and all of the returning swimmers and water polo players were devils, so you could tell who was new and who wasn't. And there was a lot of kind of like social games and stuff, and that got me to know everyone before we started training. I remember trials being really scary. All of the exec of the squad were sat at the front of a room, and we felt, I didn't think it was particularly welcoming at first. It was quite scary. But trials, I ended up being in the final heat, and I was the only girl in my heat to swim. And I was like, okay, maybe I do belong here. This isn't too bad, kind of thing. So I didn't lose that heat against all the men, which really kind of powered me through. And I made it onto the performance team, and I made some really nice friends in my lane, because you got put in lanes and each lane got faster. So I was in the end lane with two other freshers who I became best friends with, still am to this day, and some returning swimmers who were just absolutely lovely. I didn't enjoy the social aspect of the club so much. There was quite a high drinking culture within the society, and I'm not a big drinker. It's not something I enjoy particularly. So a lot of the times you got pressured into drinking at these socials, because otherwise you were boring or you were ruining the game. And because of that, I didn't go, my attendance wasn't too high for the socials my first 2 years. But this year just gone, I actually became president of swimming and water polo, and we've managed to collectively as an exec, I'd say, transform the society into a much more welcoming environment, which I'm very proud of. But definitely for my first 2 years, I didn't enjoy the social aspect of the club at all.
Okay. But did we were talking earlier, weren't we, that, creating those initiations, or whatever else you want to call them, they are actually a barrier to entry, aren't they? For, they could just, people wouldn't persist as much as you had and just walk away, and they could be the best swimmers ever, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because on pen and paper, we are a performance squad. We're there to compete. The university need us to do well for their funding. We want to bring in the fastest athletes possible. But if you scare away those freshers, for example, if they have religious beliefs or addiction problems, or just morally don't enjoy it, you're missing out on potentially some really, really high level athletes.
Yeah.
And it's just not necessarily the right kind of group of people I wanted to surround myself with all the time.
No, what I admire, Robyn, is that you got yourself to president and have then affected some change, and I think that's a huge credit to you. So well done.
Thank you.
You've left your scent there. You know what I mean? That's, hopefully next year's Pres will do the same thing. How did university and representing Lancaster in the Roses thing is the annual battle with you and York St John's, right? So if people know that, but you'll have swum in, you said, in this league and maybe in bucks and whatever. How was it? How did it improve your? How did it improve your swimming? And if so, how? And if it didn't, why not?
I've been consistently getting faster throughout my 3 years at university. So the fact that I'm still PBing at 22 is quite good. I wouldn't put a lot of it down to the actual swimming, though. So in my first year, our captains ran all of the sessions because our coach left, and they were really good. Their sessions worked really well for me, and that did help me get faster. However, I would say the quality kind of declined in second and third year just because of the relationship between the captains and the squad. And we weren't getting necessarily what we needed to. The student union took a lot of our pool hours away this year as well, which meant that there wasn't as many training opportunities. But because I transitioned to be more of a sprint focused butterfly swimmer, what it came down to was my work in the gym made me more powerful, and I could physically power myself through the water faster than I ever could before. And I think that made a big difference.
But the work you were doing in the gym, was that, were programs set for you by an S&C guy or a coach, or was that you doing that yourself?
My first year, it was programmed by my trainer back in the Isle of Man. And then I've played around with different weightlifting coaches. But for the past year, I've just been being coached by one of my teammates on the Barbell Society, and that's what's worked best for me in the end. But I've always had some program, but it has varied a lot.
Okay. And that's a nice segue, isn't it? Because part of the purpose of this pod and this conversation is that you you entered university as a swimmer and you're leaving as a weightlifter. And what was it about? You know, what were the was there a tipping point that suddenly said, you know what, I'm going to become a weightlifter and leave the swimming behind? What was it about? You know, why the transition?
So for a very long time, I was doing both competitively, even for about just over a year. I've been doing both competitively. But before then, I was just doing my weight training as S&C for swimming for the first year of uni. So I wasn't particularly good at it, but I really enjoyed it. So I kept going, and I was just training on my own in the gym at that point. Then somebody noticed, and that got me my role as strength and conditioning officer for the swimming and water polo team, along with one of my friends for the second 2 years. But I didn't properly get into weightlifting until my second year of uni, where I was brave enough to speak to someone who did weightlifting in the Barbell Society. And he kind of introduced me more to the sport. And from there, the team helped me with my technique. They helped me with my programming. They got me into competing. And they just really made it such a welcoming environment. And there's something very empowering about being strong as well. And you can track your progression much easier than swimming, because swimming, you've got your on and off season, and if you're not actively competing, you're not seeing if you're making progress as easily. Whereas every day you turn up to the gym and you can see, have I done more reps than last week? Have I done more weight than last week? Have my tech improved from last week? And you can tell every single day that you're in your training sessions that you're getting better, which is really motivating.
Okay. Now, what's interesting, just to come back a little bit, is you said you took a year out in between school and uni, and some of that was to prepare yourself for the transition across, because you didn't feel ready before. You'd done your lifeguarding with Joel, and you felt more confident. Those were all things you've said, yeah?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to catch you out here, right? But you know where this is going.
Yeah. No, I can explain it as well.
Good. Because I was taking a punt. But you've just said, and I finally picked up the confidence to talk to
Yeah.
somebody, right? So why did you need to wait, and what was the tipping point where you suddenly decided, I'm going to do this, I'm going to talk to this guy?
So the gym, I'm sure everyone kind of listening will understand, is a male dominated space. It is a scary space. It's very open. Everyone can watch what you're doing. People don't care what you're doing in the gym, but they can. And that mindset of, am I good enough? Or they're lifting heavier than me. You're always comparing yourself to somebody else in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, it was, I wanted to go in, do my own thing and leave as quickly as possible, because although I was doing something I really enjoyed, the space itself is quite intimidating at first until you are confident in what you're doing. Now I walk in the gym and I act like I own the place. I'll be shouting at my friends from across the room, but it's a huge space in a new place. And so it took me a year watching these people lift heavier than me, doing something that I enjoy, but at such a high level. And I was really excited. In the same way, I'm excited about watching swimmers who are faster than me. And eventually I was like, you know what, I want to give this a go properly. I want to see how strong I can get with this sport. And I went over, and when Hayden, his name was, who was the captain at the time, was resting, and I was like, are you the captain of the weightlifting team? Can I come along sometime and give it a go? And he was really, really nice about it. And because everyone was so welcoming, as soon as I made that effort to speak to people, then it made opening up a lot easier. But I think it's a very introverted sport as a whole. So because everyone is doing their own thing and it isn't very outgoing, it makes people seem shut off at first.
Yeah. Okay. This is really interesting, right? So there's another challenging question coming back at you. They, you, you said that there were parts of the society for swimming that you didn't enjoy, and you changed it because you've become pres and you've changed the rules. You've just talked about being intimidating in the atmosphere of a gym. And now you walk in like you own the place, right? So if the younger Robyn was to walk in and see the older Robyn strutting her stuff and blah blah blah, how do you think she would feel, and what could you do differently?
I try to be as expressive as possible so that people don't. So if I look up and make eye contact with someone, I always smile. I always try. Yesterday, actually, there were two girls using the cable machine, and I didn't know what they're doing, so I just went over and I was like, "Would you like me to show you how to use this?" And we also have two freshers who have just started weightlifting and making that extra effort every week to go over and be like, "Oh, you're doing this really well." What I found helpful when I was learning, and just those little interactions, even if you don't know people, even if you don't want it to go further than a smile, those little interactions of, oh, she's not so scary, that kind of hopefully would make people feel more comfortable in the space.
I'm I'm sure it does. It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a thing about sport, and if you're doing something new and transitioning into it or whatever, and you think, "Oh bloody hell, this is a clique," and then when you're a part of it, it's just a great bunch of mates.
Yeah.
But but what I really like, Robyn, is you recognise these things, A, in yourself, and B, therefore can stand in somebody else's shoes. And whether you're the president or whether you just happen to be doing a set next to somebody or whatever, you do it. And am I am I barking up a wrong tree? But I do, one of the things I do get about the Isle of Man is a sense of community and making people feel a part. Do you think that being Manx has an influence on how you think about these things?
I think it definitely has, because, but in a different way possibly than what you're thinking. So in the gym, for example, a lot of the time when I'm training back at home, it's empty. There's nobody in there, and that's kind of quite isolating. I'm very close with my trainer, but if he's not on shift, then I don't have anyone to speak to, and you feel like it's not as much of a nice place to be. And then coming here, and we've got massive strength and conditioning room, a massive cardio room, and then a downstairs more kind of quiet gym. There's so many people in the space at once that I kind of want to interact with as many people as possible, just because I have the opportunity to, and the opportunity to kind of enjoy it more.
Yeah. Okay. So, and also you said you had a conflict with you've got your graduation coming up, which means you're leaving uni very soon. What are you going to do, and why are you going to do it, and what does that hold for you? And then we'll talk about your sport again.
Okay, so my exams finish on the 6th of June, and then my graduation is on the 14th of July. So there's not a whole lot of time before I graduate. But after graduation, I am relocating again to Birmingham, which is a bit scary because I've never lived in a big city before. But I'm going to be joining the West Midlands Police, hopefully, waiting for my final offer at the moment, to be a neighbourhood police officer.
So what is it about the job that attracted you, and what is it about you that makes you think that I think you're going to be great, right? So end of. But what is it about the job that you see is complementary to who you are now?
I was looking at all of these jobs because everyone's applying to everything at the moment, and I applied for a couple of marketing jobs which relate to my degree, and I wasn't getting excited about any of them. I didn't want to go into an office job because I was worried that once you start, you never leave, and that's your life gone in a flash. Then you sat behind your desk. It wasn't for me. I'm a very active person and also a very sociable person. So I was looking for a job that maybe would be more kind of out and about. But my dad actually was the one who found this opportunity. It's with police now, it's a graduate scheme. And I applied, and it all happened really quickly. There was an assessment center where I sat for 6 hours behind a computer and had to do all of these different things. And then you got through that, and then there was the next stage, next stage, and it all happened so quickly. But actually, it's the first thing that I've genuinely been really excited to do with my life. And I think the opportunity to help people, and it's not just response, but actually you'll be given long-term projects within a community, say knife crime or something along those lines, and you can actually be a part of active change and making a difference and being able to follow through over a long term, I think will be really rewarding.
Yeah, I get it. So how are you going to continue to pursue your weightlifting, and what are your ambitions for weightlifting, and how are the two complementary, or are there some clashes?
I have a pretty big goal for my weightlifting, and I want to stand on the Commonwealth Games platform with all of those athletes and wear an Isle of Man singlet and just, do what I love to do on a big stage, which obviously is going to require a lot of time, a lot of dedication. I have to get my nutrition right, my timing right. And I think, at least for my training time, it's going to be really difficult with the police, because we have 7 weeks of intense training. And in that time, we're actually staying on site somewhere where they feed us. So I won't have that control over my nutrition that I usually do. And their gym will not be weightlifting appropriate. So I'm going to have to find an external place to train, as well with the high intensity of the actual course that we're doing, because we're doing in 7 weeks what is usually done in around 16 weeks. And it's something like 8 till 6 every day, except for weekends. We do have weekends off, and it's a new place. It's a new thing that I've never done before. It's a lot of new people that I'm going to be interacting with. And I think that 7 weeks are going to be hard. But once I settle into a routine on the force with my shifts, I'm hoping it'll become easier to balance.
It's the word balance is the thing, isn't it? Because you won't always be a competitive weightlifter forever, but you are in a career for the next X years. So you've got to balance those two things, haven't you? How do you anticipate keeping yourself and your performance as a weightlifter visible to those people who need to know about what you're doing, so that you could be eligible for selection for the commies?
So I plan on continuing to compete wherever possible, because if nothing else, that's how I keep contact with all of my friends that I've made through weightlifting. So one of my absolute best friends actually graduated last year, but we managed to see him 3 or 4 times just from competing this year. And it's a great way to stay in touch. So I'm motivated in a social way, as well as just, this is my passion and I will make it happen. In terms of making sure I'm still in thank you, for commies, it comes down to communication. So I have Elliot is somebody who works for Isle of Man Sport, who I'm going to start meeting with every other week, and his job is to hold me accountable. So I tell him about any physio I'm doing, what my nutrition's been like, any worries I have, what's going well, and those regular updates keep Isle of Man Sport involved. I also very actively post on my Instagram account about all of my weightlifting, so anyone who follows me through that. And I'm also on the board for Isle of Man Weightlifting, so just being a part of that will hopefully remind everyone that I do still exist. I'm still doing what I need to do.
We'll come back to the Isle of Man weightlifting board. Do you see yourself using? Do you use Trevor, Paul, and Rich as part of putting Team Robyn around you to be as good as you can be?
Well, I've only just been signed up to it in the past couple of weeks, so I haven't fully learned about all the opportunities yet, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to include them in the journey as much as possible.
Yeah, is the correct answer. The but the you do an individual sport, right? but everybody needs a team around them, don't they?
Exactly.
And so picking that team. So maybe the last question, Robyn. I'm really keen to explore, because a lot of Manx athletes, I think, are like you, that they want to give something back. So tell me about this role on the. Until we started talking earlier, I hadn't got a clue there was a national governing body, national sporting body. What's your role on the board, and how do you see that developing?
Well, it's actually really exciting. It's very, very new. I discovered them by accident, just looking through Instagram. It came up with Isle of Man weightlifting, and I was like, I've never seen another Isle of Man person do weightlifting. There's no way. So I sent them a message and got involved with Jake, who's organized all of this, and I've done some training with them and got to know them all. And they said that they're putting a board together to hopefully send athletes to Commonwealth Games. So as something I'm really passionate about, and also selfishly wanting to have a chance at Commonwealth Games, I was like, I would love to be a part of it. If you need any help, I can use my marketing degree to help with promotions and the Instagram account and things like that, because Jake said he wasn't so confident in that area. So my role at the moment is mostly going to be social media and promoting and advertising what our athletes are achieving through that. But it does come back to giving back, because I've always been a part of the swim squad. I've coached, I've done swim camps for people. I've obviously, as I said, been swimming teaching, and I've always been a part of that. But I'd never found a way to be involved in weightlifting on the Isle of Man, because I thought I was isolated doing it alone. So finding out that there is this community that they're trying to build up is genuinely so exciting for me, because I think it would be great to get people involved in the sport and as many people as possible to be competing.
Let's go back to where we came in, and you pinching yourself because you can't believe that you're just about to get into the same swim lane as Charlotte Atkinson. You can imagine somebody, perhaps, hopefully, inspired by who you are and what you're doing, because I think the two things are important, because I think who you are as a person is huge as well, Robyn. But can you imagine somebody walking into a gym and doing a session with Robyn Douglas, Commonwealth Games, weightlifting? Do you know what I mean? It's you doing your part in so many ways. I just think and it clearly is very important to you.
Yeah, and I actually didn't realize how far I'd come until I went to a competition in Liverpool in January, which was the same competition that I did my first ever lifting comp at a year later. And I was in warming up with all of these girls that I'd competed against the year before, and they were absolutely miles ahead of me. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, they're incredible lifters. Look how strong they are. I beat them in this competition. I came third and I medaled, and I actually sat back and was like, oh my goodness, I'm becoming one of those athletes that new people can come in and like be inspired by, almost, because I hadn't realized. And there's always that issue with imposter syndrome at these bigger comps where you're like, hang on, Sarah Davies went to the Olympics and is lifting after me. I should not be here. But equally, being able to now say that I'm a higher level lifter and being able to help the fresher girls that are starting and help coach them here at uni and hopefully inspire them to keep the barbell society going, it's just really important, because I haven't ever had any girls to train alongside before. Until this year, it's always been me and a group of boys at university. So I hope to inspire more girls to get into it so that they're more confident, and it's a nice experience.
And to do that on island, that's huge, isn't it? What does it mean to represent the Isle of Man to you?
It's so exciting. It's my favorite thing in the world to be able to. I've been asking the Isle of Man weightlifting people if we can make singlets with Team Isle of Man on, because I'm so incredibly proud to be from the Isle of Man and to be able to be out on these bigger platforms and in a sport that is brand new to the island as well. One of the first people to be able to advocate for it. I just absolutely love it. As I said, that was one of the greatest part about Island Games, was getting to wear the uniform which matched every single athlete on the island and really brought you together to be able to say, yeah, we're a tiny island, but actually look what we can do. Because people don't expect it, and it's really fun to be like, oh, I'm from the Isle of Man and now I'm gonna beat you all. You know, it's kind of a fun underdog almost thing to be able to do. But I'm just incredibly proud always to be. I tell everyone, my actual go-to is to be like, you know, we don't have squirrels on the Isle of Man, but we have wallabies, and all of my friends think I'm making it up as a place. So it's nice to talk about it as much as possible, I think.
Brilliant. What a way to end. That was a lot of fun for me, and I hope you enjoyed it too. And I know that those that will listen to this will, on a number of levels, will be inspired by who you are and what you've done and what you're intending to do. And I just wish you all the best.
Thank you.
So I'll see you again when we're both across, maybe.
Yes. See you later.